So do you remember how you behaved as a teenager when you hit 18, going to college, and, things started to happen, you experimented, and then you had to behave, but you didn't, and kind of led a couple, parallel lives?
I think the Fifth Amendment.
Well, okay. So we have Chris Tebbetts joining us, author Chris Tebbetts, and he is joining us to talk about his memoir-fiction hybrid. It's called Me, Myself, and Him. It releases July 9th, 2019 through Delacorte Press, and we're going to talk about this. It's going to be a good conversation, a very cool book. Nancy and I have both been reading it here.
Mm-hmm.
And so here he is on Big Blend Radio. I encourage you to go to his website, christebbetts.com, and that's TEBBETTS.com, just to prove that I can still spell. Welcome, Chris. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for spelling my name. As an author and somebody with a website, I kind of wish my last name was Smith, so I appreciate the clarification.
Well, listen, my last name is Smith, and when you have DUIs printed in your local newspaper and they have my exact name, no, you don't want that name because it wasn't me.
Okay, double-edged sword.
Sure.
Fair enough.
Yeah, this is such a fun read. Nancy and I both started the book, and we're like,
so well written. I love it.
Yeah, so
Thank you.
So I think this is for all ages, right? Did you write it for all ages?
You're saying everything I want to hear. This is a YA novel, largely based on the fact that it's an 18-year-old protagonist, but I certainly hope that it has some adult crossover, which a lot of YA books do these days.
So we start off, and now you've got Chris as your main character, your protagonist. I have a thing about the word protagonist. It's even there to say this in the intro, and I can't. It's like a weird thing for me, but I don't know if that's just me. But so you got Chris and Chris here. Chris is writing about Chris. And he gets in trouble because he was sniffing whippets. Now, I think of a dog. I had to look it up, but I remember sniffing.
Uh-oh. I'm sitting right here.
And I think I was a little younger than 18. I know I was. But, the spray cooking stuff?
Oh.
We used to try and do that, and then, but apparently whatever Chris was sniffing, this took him down. This was not like, cooking oil or whatever we were trying to do as kids.
It did, and in the name of full disclosure, this is a mostly fictionalized accounting of some of my adolescent memories. But the prologue in which he is huffing whippets out of whipped cream cans behind the ice cream store where he works is strictly autobiographical. That did happen to me once upon a time. And not to glorify the experience, the book begins with some immediate consequences. But yeah, whippets are nitrous oxide, which is the gas that pushes whipped cream out of whipped cream cans. It's also AKA laughing gas at the dentist.
Really? So so don't try this at home because you could break your nose on concrete.
I'm here to tell you could break your nose doing it. I'm sorry?
I said, but then if it's laughing gas,
do you get giggles from it?
Well,
I don't remember. You don't fall down.
Yeah, cooking oil.
Yeah, in the dentist chair you won't fall down. My dentist used to give it to me as a kid. I haven't had it in that context in years and years, but it was to relax patients.
Wow.
See, but there's these parallel lines is very interesting to me about how, Chris goes through this, oh, God, now I'm, in hospital, and here comes, now your mom knows, or does she know? How much does she know? And then, this whole drama. And just after my teens, I had an oopsie where I ended up in hospital.
Oopsie?
And
That's what you call it.
It was an oopsie. And I was like, oh, I'm so done. I am so toast. And all I can say is this book means everything to me because I don't feel alone. But this whole point of going through this, it is like you're growing up right now. Like that moment was like your wake-up call to growing up.
It was and it wasn't. In real life, this whole book began as a creative nonfiction piece for me where the conclusion of that creative nonfiction piece, which was written for adults, not for younger readers, was that, in fact, nothing permanently molding, nothing really terrible came of the experience except for the broken nose itself. And I was sort of struck by that even at age 18, that my life sort of carried on after that. But ever since then, I've been really curious about what if things had gone differently, and not just in one way but in another. the book, I call this a sliding doors book. For some people who know the movie Sliding Doors, that reference will mean something, which is to say the book explores two parallel outcomes from the same inciting incident, one where he's caught and busted for what happened, which is what happened to me, and one where he gets away with it and tries to lie about it.
See, that's but you can you can do either one, and that's what's so interesting because it goes through your mind when you get into that. But it's like I always think that when you have that kind of accident or stuff happens from what you do, there's always a wake-up call, and it makes you think, and that's why I say it's like one of those. It propels you forward into, what if?
I think it's nature's way of saying hello.
Wakey, wakey.
Wake up.
Yeah. And we
do
that.
It's like those near misses in the car where you think, gosh, if things had gone just slightly different, I could be, I could be in an accident right now.
Oh.
Well, if you look at nature and you watch like nature films where the antelope's running, the cheetah's doing this, and then the antelope goes, no, I think I'll go this way, and the cheetah's like, I hate you. Because I'm going this way and I can't turn that fast. And the antelope is there's a deciding moment. What are you going to do? And do it now. And how much time do you have to think? Are you thinking or are you going on gut instinct?
And the book is very much about choices and how they impact our lives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you write a lot for, the YA genre, that age group, right? What was it that led you to that? Because I know you wrote the Stranded series with Jeff Probst. You've got your YA novel M or F. You've got all the middle school series, with James Patterson. Geez, excuse me, move over. Oh my gosh. How did that all happen? And why did you go in that pathway? Is it to really help kids? Because I think it's got to be one of the most confusing parts of our lives is that teen time, that preteen and teen time. It's
interesting. I am writing. In some ways, I have stumbled into writing for an audience that doesn't match my own experience back from my middle school days. The series I write with James Patterson began with a book called Middle School: The Worst Years of My Life, about a character who really struggles, as a lot of kids do at that age. I was not one of those kids, so it's interesting to be writing about that from this perspective. But what I've also stumbled into, I was the kid who watched way too much TV, and it's very pop culture oriented. I'm still very pop culture oriented, and what I tend to write, what just comes out of me naturally, are books that appeal to so-called reluctant readers, to kids who maybe aren't so interested in reading, but they pick up one of my books. And my favorite thing to hear ever is, my kid didn't like reading. He picked up one of your books, and now he's really into it.
Awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, because they're fun. Because you as soon as we picked it up, both of us were like, we got to get, we're sunk in, and I don't care what our age is. It's got to be something that it's fun, and you want to what's going on now, and to me, I think it's about identifying, getting people connected with your characters, but getting them, especially for young adults, it's like he understands me. Mm-hmm. The writer understands me.
And let me make one caveat here that I've been writing for a long time for, a lot of people use the phrase young adult to talk about books for young readers in general. What I've been writing most of my career is what I call middle grade fiction for, say, 8 to 12-year-old readers. And the book we're talking about tonight, Me, Myself, and Him, is for a teen audience. And so I do want to make sure that anybody who are fans of my books for younger kids isn't going to put this book into an 8 to 12-year-old kid's hand.
No, we can't. No, we can't do that. It's different. But now, okay,
different.
So go ahead, Nancy.
Okay, I just want to say that when I'm reading this, I'm going, that's my brother Ricky, and that's me. And everybody thought we were twins, and we weren't, but we were 13 months apart. And so we were almost twins. He's passed on, unfortunately, but as I say, okay, that's how I'd look at it, and that's how he'd look at it. And I'm like, dude, you got us.
Yeah.
That was the other thing I was going to say to what you said a minute ago, Lisa, which is one of my favorite quotes that I used to think belonged to C.S. Lewis, but actually belongs to Anthony Hopkins playing C.S. Lewis in the movie Shadowlands. But what he says in that movie is, we read to know we're not alone. And I've just always loved that.
Yeah.
I think that's exactly it. You can read this. As an adult, I dig it. Man, it's so much fun. But at the same time, here comes the complexities of friendships, relationships. It gets different, and here it goes. Especially when we're 18 plus. Now how do we navigate those waters? And then there's the family thing. So there's a lot of relationship part of this.
Absolutely, and this is where I'm going to be very interested to see how, especially people who know me, respond to this book. Because again, I am basing, the beginning of the book on autobiography, and then spinning into fictional outcomes from there. And in those fictional outcomes, he has a very difficult relationship with his father, who he basically hates through most of the book. I adored my father, so I'm not quite sure how people are going to match me, Chris, up with Chris, the character in the book. But to me, that's part of what's interesting about all of this. What's true based on your perspective, on your experience. It's kind of the whole idea, even if I'm taking some risk in confusing my audience, or at least the part of my audience who knows me already.
That's wild. Like, you sit there and go, okay, well, I'm doing this, and that's
fun,
it. I'm going.
Though?
I know.
I think that's fun.
That's a part of writing.
It's like you're taking a risk, but I like that risk.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, you think I'm this, watch this.
Poke.
Yeah, it's what we call it, poke. Poke. Oh, yeah, watch this.
To see what happens.
You think with this, watch this.
Yeah.
I think that's how we became the blend, because everybody said you have to specialize, and we're like, no, we don't.
No, we don't. Do you ever go to places and pretend you're somebody else to see what happens?
Yeah, that's been known to happen a time or two or three or four for me, yeah. I think we storytellers love to live in worlds of pretend, and on the page, but also walking around in life a bit.
Do you change your accent?
I've tried that a few times. I can't believe you're asking me this, because it's embarrassing. But every once in a great while.
Come on, it's I can feel it. I can feel it in your writing. I know that you go out there and people watch.
Okay.
I know you do.
We went to Las Vegas and pretended to be British, and ordered crumpets. It's so funny.
You have more nerve than I do.
Really?
Well, we were sitting talking in British accents, and this lady was sitting right next to us. You know how they put all these little tables next to us, and we were talking about we were talking about crumpets instead of muffins and all this. And this lady turned right to us, and we had no idea. And she goes, "Oh, girls, they don't have any of those today. I already asked them for it." And we're like, "Oh my God, we got to shut up right now." But it was like crazy, because then we're stuck.
And they're like, "Is she lying? Doing what we're doing, or is she really British?"
Yeah.
It's so weird.
And in fact, you're looping right into the book, because a lot of this is about him getting caught in his lie. Like, once you've begun it, you're stuck in it.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's like, what's the way out of this one?
That's it. The lie, living in the lie. That thing where, like, how far can you take this?
It's so much fun.
And then it becomes bigger. And then, where does the moment come where you start believing the lie?
Oh,
I mean, I'm not sure how far you've gotten in the book, but there's even a line in there where he says, I said these lines so many times I was starting to believe them myself, which is part of the survival instinct, I think, of living with being somebody other than who you are, which, again, I hope a young adult audience can really relate to.
I think this is important.
I would just call that politics.
Okay, now, I know that you also...
It's just got to go politicians. There you are.
But I also know
you believe it.
You worked in film and also in theater. Does that help you write the characters? Because your characters are just so immediate to me.
Oh, thank you.
They're just there.
It's interesting. I feel like one of my strengths is dialogue. I'm able to get dialogue that I call my style Life Plus. It's a little like, say West Wing or some of Aaron Sorkin's stuff, where it's not entirely realistic, but it's emotionally realistic and entertaining at the same time. But to answer your question more specifically, I once thought I wanted to be an actor, but I'm a really lousy actor. And where I fall short on characters sometimes is just getting inside their heads, just as it was difficult for me as an actor to get inside characters' heads, and it's difficult for me as a writer. I think my dialogue is strong. My character work is where I really have to put in the most heavy digging. But that background in what I call collaborative storytelling, filmmaking, theater, and all of that, it's really served me as a writer in general, and especially as a co-author on the books where I have done a lot of co-authoring with James Patterson, with Jeff Probst. and then to come full circle, now I'm doing this as a solo novel. So I was sort of on my own for all of that.
Yeah, so was that different to go on because that was actually one of my main things I wanted to ask. What was it like? Because to me, even co-authoring it seems like that would be difficult, but at the same time, like I know Nancy and I work together on a magazine, and it's like we do, finish each other's sentences where one can do this, one can do that, and then sometimes we have to swap roles and whatever. But and sometimes it can get really tenacious at times.
Oh yeah.
So going from that,
we have bulldog moments,
and then going on your own, it seems like to me in the way that's like, ooh, that's really freeing, and then I'm like, no, dude, that's kind of scary. So yeah.
I have a talk that I give about co-authoring and co-writing, and one of the things I talk about is the downside is creative compromise. You have to give up some of your, beloved ideas in the name of compromise. The upside is creative synthesis, which is the coming together of two minds that can't be, achieved in any other way. So writing solo, I don't have to do that kind of compromise with a co-author. I get to make all the choices myself, but especially when you're used to doing it with somebody else, it's a little creatively lonely. But no regrets. I loved writing this book. It's the most personal thing I've ever done. And in that regard, it was more from the heart than anything I've ever written. So I wasn't as alone, so to speak, as I might have been.
Yeah, I watched this thing once where one artist finished another artist's painting, and I paint, so I was like, oh, no. And now I'm thinking, well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
What was wrong with that? I was abhorred. I was just like, no. You will not touch my painting. I will do it myself. And then I thought, well, wait a minute.
Why did the control?
What was that?
Release the hounds.
I know. Isn't that interesting? But now when you do like a film or something, everybody is contributing.
And even in publishing, I mean, there's a little bit of a misconception around publishing or around writing as a completely solo process, because you interact with your agent, you interact with your editor, you interact with the marketing department, and everybody has opinions. It's just it's a little less intuitive to folks about the ways in which publishing is cooperative. But as compared to theater and filmmaking, for sure, it's more of a solo endeavor. And in fact, I love that aspect of it. I love working at home alone. I'm good with solitude, all of those things.
Do you listen to music when you write?
No, I'm not one of those people. I don't go to coffee houses and write. I write in silence all the time.
Oh wow. I couldn't understand going the coffee house thing won't work. But we all have like different things of how we do it.
You can do music and I can't. Lisa can listen to music, but then I'll start typing to the beat.
I type to the beat. It's the way to make me move forward.
Interesting.
Forward march.
All right.
I mean, really, it's about finding what process works for you more than anything.
Did you think you would write for youth, like you've got the middle school, right, and then your book now, which is like it's teen, but it's like you're going into college, so it's like post-teen almost. Teen, post-teen.
I mean, I would still call this a YA novel as opposed to what they say is a new adult, because kids generally like to read up the age scale. So I'm thinking, the publisher is positioning this as a book for ages 14 and up. Again, I think that it's written in such a way that adults are going to enjoy it as well, but it will be shelved as YA for sure.
Wow. I totally took it as totally adult.
Well, that's because I don't know, but it's fun to read. We just enjoy it. I didn't even think about the age group other than it just takes us all back to where we were and what we did. And I think that's important because the way you wrote it was real about what that age group is, and so many authors don't want to go there. They want to be so PC that it's not believable. There's no integrity to it. And a kid will just throw it down and say, you don't know who I am, and why should I read you?
I was nervous about that. I kept waiting for my agent and my editor to say, "Hey, pull back. Maybe a few less curse words here or there." And one of the things that I first confronted when I started writing for teen audiences was that dichotomy. Do you write an idealized language or do you write a realistic language? And I think that there's room for both on the shelf. I went for something more realistic, something that felt real to me. But I'm also, again, as an author, you're taking a bit of a risk if you're putting the F word in your book. There are places that it's not going to show up now. But on the other hand, you're giving your audience a more realistic depiction.
I think the F word's really funny. I did a term paper on it, and it's just not even a word. It's an abbreviation for fine for unlawful carnal knowledge. And so what?
I know. Well, we have to take that risk too, because sometimes that happens on our show, and
but
we
it's
go,
not even a real
like,
word.
okay, well, there it went. Now I have to put explicit on there.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So I don't know. I don't think we have to put explicit on the F word now, but we can, if it was the full thing, full Monty. Talk about the book in regards to Chris, your main character, protagonist, I'll say it, and his life moving forward in regards to college, family. I mean, this is kind of like a coming of age in a way, right?
It's certainly a coming of age story. For anybody who has left home and gone away to college, which is not a universal but an extremely common experience, that was a very emotionally rich time for me. I grew up in one town, as did Chris in the book, and so leaving behind this place where you've been for 18 years and know nothing else is a very fraught but exciting time. And I tried to capture both of those things. There's a point in the book where he says, on the one hand, he couldn't wait for September, and on the other hand, he never wanted that last summer with his friends to end. And the book is full of dichotomies like that, because we're full of dichotomies. We all want things that aren't necessarily compatible with each other, and yet we want both of those things. So that was definitely drawing. When I say it's a combination of memoir and fiction, emotionally, it felt like an emotionally truthful and emotionally autobiographical piece of the book for me. I certainly remember that last summer. I remember those nerves of going away to college, and not really knowing what I was getting into. And
then also going through the family side, the dad, right?
Yeah.
And then dad is like, buy the books, and here's like, hey, I would have fun, and the summer thing. There was one piece where you talk about like this. You just wanted to soak up that moment, and I think we've all had that. I remember with a past loved one who's passed. Remember before we broke up, lying there going, I know this is going to end, but this is the most beautiful thing ever, and I will never forget this moment. And when he passed, that was that moment, and I actually remembered that moment. And how many times do we get to remember those moments? To say, remember those moments. You don't want it to pass. You know it's going to, but you try to harness the sun. And you wrote about that. And I was just like, this is like the most, that real, it's like it's coming to an end. And you just, like, you want to enjoy it, but then there's that angst of like, damn it. No.
One of my favorite reading experiences is sort of what you just described, where somebody seems to be writing to you. So they seem to be writing your experience, even though they're writing of something very specific about a specific character. That's the magic of storytelling. I think that we have to be as specific as possible in order to reach universal truths.
Yeah, because you connect with us, and that's the thing is like with reading your work. I mean, my God. Immediately you're in your own world. You can see Wexler and Anna. You can see, I mean, Anna's a trip, okay? Like seriously, but you can see everyone. They took me back to a little town that when we first got back to South Africa. Not back when we first landed in South Africa. We went to this little town in Greytown, and it was this was Greytown. I'm there. I know exactly where the golf course is, and I know exactly, even though it's not, I remember that. And, you automatically transport. It's so amazing. Did you study this, like, to be able to connect us, to understand, immediately? Like, really immediate.
Study it? No, I was a film major in college, and I certainly have taken writing courses, but I think, if I were to guess at what maybe allowed me to do what you just described, I think of myself as a very empathetic person, and in one of my lectures that I do at workshops, I talk about the things that we can do to bring our stories to life, and I talk about love.
Yeah.
And the assumption that a lot of people take from that is that we have to love our characters, and I have no problem with that conceptually, But for me, I love my stories into life, and with my characters, it's more about I empathize with them. I empathize them into life. I try to, again, bringing in the actor's mentality. I try to
I love that.
Get inside their
But
experience.
I think there's a lot of, for me at least, everybody's different, but attention to detail is what draws me in. Like you don't want to overload detail to it becomes a textbook, but you have to have enough detail to draw the person in, and that's a fine line. And I love that because I can read 3 or 4 lines and I'm right there.
Yeah, because you're very visual as a writer.
And my mind will fill in the rest. And I think people need to have that thing where their imagination fills in the rest for them.
Yeah, that's one of the real challenges is knowing. I mean, again, every reader is going to be different, so you can't write for every reader. But at least for the ones who like the kind of things you do, how much do you give them? How much do you withhold? It's a very tricky question.
Wow. Yeah.
But
and I think you got that. You aced that because at least for me, I like I said, I was right there with there's this version, that version, one's me and one's my brother. And I was right there from like the second page. I'm like, okay, it's this.
It's like everybody leave me alone.
And then as I read on, I'm like, no, but it's my brother. And then because we're so close that it was like everybody thought we were twins, and so it was interchanged all the time. I was like, okay, now
you've got the parallel lines.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, wow.
See, I think parents and kids can read this.
Oh,
see,
for
that's what I think is so cool about it. I see
I'm
both
definitely
sides.
Going to be pushing that angle because I agree, and most of my readers, my critique group partners and that sort of thing, are adults, and they've all really enjoyed the book as adult readers. Yeah, I'm running with that line of thought for sure.
Absolutely.
Oh, man, this is so exciting. So now this comes out in July, right? So this is like the perfect summer read, perfect timing, right?
Takes place in the summer, yes.
Perfect. So July 9th is the date, everybody. But people can pre-order because, like, I know you got things on your website. If everyone goes to Tebbetts.com, TEBBETTS.
Thank you.
I know. But you've got, like, T-shirts. You got all kinds of things going on, like
I'm running
giveaways
a very cool pre-order campaign. I learned this year that pre-orders are actually really, really valuable for a book and for authors and for a book's chances in the competitive marketplace. So I'm trying to entice people by we have some really cool T-shirts with. I love the cover art on this book, and we've used that as a basis for the T-shirt. That people every 10 pre-orders I get, I'll be giving away one T-shirt.
So everyone, go do it now. Do it now. Do it now. I know. So you can't tell me what happens, right?
No, don't. I want to finish it.
But I just want to know what happens.
If you want.
I know. No, I want to read it. Seriously, Nancy and I are both stuck in it. But the father side is really interesting to go from one to the other, and that interesting flip between the mom parent and the dad parent. And that's the other part that I think that is so critical that you brought into the story is, most kids now are living with parents in 2 places.
Right.
And very few people write about that. And I think that's important, and it's a very realistic thing that kids can, get connected with. And you really do go to that level of where they are, like realistically.
Glad to hear that.
Not level like down. I'm not saying down. I'm just saying you're putting them in a place where that's what life is like.
They can understand.
Yeah, they can understand, and someone really does understand, and I think that's an important thing. The mom over here, the dad over here, and, the 2 different personalities.
Yeah.
We're familiar with that,
That, in some ways, that was I knew I needed the character to land in 2 different places, but it was also another way in which I could differentiate his experience from mine. My parents were married for 58 years before my dad died, and so again, anybody who knows me will know that I'm making things up. I wanted that to be, very well known. That some of this is fiction, some of it's not. So the separated parents is a completely fictional aspect of the book.
But it's like what kids are now going through,
Yeah, there's certainly a reference point for a lot of readers there.
Yeah, to go through that, and then off to your father now. It's like okay. Isn't that so typical?
Oh, for
Your
sure.
father will be the one to discipline you, and tell you what to do, and you will go by this way. And that there's the other side of that story too. So that's the other part. I mean, it's like, oh no, don't make me.
If you're going to draw somebody in to make a point, you have to draw them in, and whatever you need to use to draw them in is what you do in order to make a point.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
I mean, certainly what brought me to the book was, and we haven't even talked about this, and I'm not sure quite how far you've gotten with it, but my original inspiration for this book is about my own interest in the intersection of science and religion. The father is a physicist, and his secretary is a born-again Christian, and it's not a religious book. I'm not even a religious person, but I have a real interest in the way theoretical physics, opens up the possibility of these parallel universes, the so-called multiverse, and the idea that all of these realities are realities, but then also the way in which theoretical physics, just like Christianity, is a search for one universal truth. That's just intellectually interesting to me. Again, not as a religious person, but as a scholar, I suppose. Yeah.
For sure.
Well, I think, even now, again, going back to, the age group that you're writing for, and, also the parents, right now, look at what's going on in religion, and you got to think, like, what are kids looking at going, hello, why should I go to, I'm scared to go to church, I mean, don't make me. So there's like I'm serious, and then there's the flip side of, we're all in it. That's how you will be raised, and that's that. So I'm glad you bring that. We're not at that part, but, and that's a good thing, because your book is the type that will just sit and blab the entire thing out, and I don't want to do that. But no, seriously, but I think that's important. Is that part of the reason you brought it into, was what's going on now?
Honestly, I wouldn't say that was a strong part of it for me. I mean, the story certainly grew to reflect some current truths, and it's interesting to have. Well, it's interesting now. I don't want to give too much away to you guys either, since you haven't got so far.
Yeah.
To see the way in which my character comes up against a religious character, because it's so outside of his experience, as it was mine. And I will say, back when I worked at Friendly Ice Cream way back in the 80s, and the sort of very first seeds of the story began, I did have a born-again Christian coworker who opened my eyes to the idea. I was very closed-minded about all of that, and and this woman and I ended up, becoming friendly coworkers. We played racquetball together. There was nothing religious about our interaction, and it really did open my eyes to some of my own judgment about people who have different lives or different, make different choices than I do.
Yeah, it's
that's interesting.
It's just such a fascinating time to be in now, because I think through books now, I mean, you think back in the day, you wouldn't be allowed to write about it.
No, that's right. That's right.
We got to look at that. The reality now, we have some openness, and then we have a whole bunch of no openness for. Let's put the list out there for everything, But at the same time, we do have a lot more openness than what we did, 50, 60, 70 years ago, which wasn't that long ago. But we're getting there slowly, but we're getting there. And I think it's great that you're writing about it, because if people don't, we're not going to have it. And so thank you for doing that, because I think it's important that we have some kind of connection. And we don't just go, well, I don't believe in that, so you suck. You know what I mean? We have to have some kind of balance and storytelling.
Absolutely.
And
I mean,
I think storytelling does it.
In terms of what's going on today, I might amend my answer to your question before, because I think that's right. We're in an era where, everything is so black and white for so many people, and one of my real interests in writing this book was in talking about how two seemingly conflicting things can be true at the same time, which is also to say that people can coexist at the same time, hopefully more peacefully than we are right now.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, me too. Because I think, people get locked into what you should believe as opposed to what you actually believe, what you're told to believe. And
how much time do you have? We could talk about that for a long time, yeah.
Oh, yeah, because it's like so many people think this. And we have friends that start sentences like that. Well, so many people say this, and I'm so like, I don't care. what do you think? You yourself, deep in your heart. What does your gut say? What does your heart say? What does your brain say? Not what somebody told you. And it's like this. I'm always interested on the nature aspect. Are we a herd animal with a leader and we just follow blindly, or are we like a leopard who does his own thing?
Or pack animals.
We're like, we're definitely.
No, I don't want to be a pack animal.
But then I think I don't know, but I keep going. Why are we here? I'm still there, going. Nature exists quite well without us, and then human beings come in, and then
we mess it up.
What have we done for the actual universe? When you take away what we've done for human beings, we've done. Everybody talk. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I'm always a little hesitant to toot my own horn, but I will say one thing I'm really proud of in this book is that I don't feel like I condescend to my teen characters, and I allow them to have big, complicated thoughts like the ones we're talking about right now.
Exactly.
And I think that's something that people
the
are
point.
thinking about the book. Yeah.
That's the point. That is the point, and that's what I said in the beginning. You didn't dumb them down.
Yeah.
And that's so important because I know as a teenager, I was reading books that were not for my age because the books for my age sucked because they acted as though we didn't have a brain and that we didn't say these things or have these thoughts, these dirty thoughts that we did have, or this we didn't. They acted in this way of they didn't know who we were and they were writing according to whatever they were writing according to. It wasn't according to me. There wasn't anything for me really. That was
I mean, and we're certainly in a terrific era for YA literature. People are really tackling
a lot of new and interesting and big issues in YA.
Cool. Did you ever think you were going to do this? Going into film production, did you think you were going to end up doing this for the youth, writing for the youth?
It came as I want to say it came as a surprise, except in retrospect, which is to say books were certainly my first love. I was a voracious reader as a kid, and then from there I got into theater, from there I got into film, and from film I got back into theater, and it wasn't until I left New York City at the end of my 20s, moved to Vermont, and sort of thought, well, what next, that I really settled back into writing, and then specifically writing for young audiences, and for whatever reason, it was when I started doing that I really started trying to get published as opposed to just writing for myself. Sometimes you just sort of have to organically notice what you're connecting to and run with it, and that's what happened for me.
Oh, that's awesome.
Cool.
So what's next?
I love writing for teens. I love writing for middle grade readers, those 8 to 12-year-old readers. So having just done this, I'm more than starting. I'm in the middle of another middle grade novel that is completely different. My elevator pitch for it is Harriet the Spy meets Austin Powers. So
cool.
We'll see where that takes me. But it's very silly and not at all like the last thing. I always say that I really admire the chameleons more than the specialists, and I aspire to be a chameleon myself that way.
Oh, I love that.
So I think chameleons will outlive specialists because you know what happens to specialists? Bye-bye.
Yeah, you're stuck in your own box.
Just look at evolution.
Yeah, change.
The species who live on are the ones who
can adapt.
They're adaptive and multitasking.
And we can have all kinds of colors.
And the specialist species are the ones who go endangered and die out.
And chameleons have multiple colors.
And I'm not saying it's their fault at all. It's more likely ours. But it's true.
I love it.
So the cockroach will live forever.
There you go. So I've gotten to talk about my book and gotten a little therapy here. This has been great.
I know. It's so cool talking with you. When we get to Vermont, I want to come see you because, we can't wait to get to Vermont. But really, we're on a tour. We're traveling the country full time, the two of us, and going to document every park in the country, just really so that we can protect this land and the history and the stories and everything. And I hope we get to see you when we get up there because it'll be a while before we get to Vermont.
I hope you will.
But
I hope you will. Yeah.
Man. I saw the photos on your website. It looks beautiful. Looks like you're having a good time there. Do you like living there?
I love living in Vermont. I love being able to say there's nowhere I'd rather live, and there's also as far as I can tell, there's no state that lives up to its own pictures in the calendar like Vermont.
I know,
wow,
right?
cool.
That's cool. I do what you say. I love. It's, there's no place like home.
Yes,
there.
well, right.
I had to go there. So we have a song for you that we're going to play.
Awesome.
We always like to dedicate songs, and I actually have a playlist for your book, and I'm not done with your book, but I have a playlist. But I can't do that now. But I'm going to play the original one that I wanted to play, the very first one, which is called "Lessons from My Father," and this is from Jeff Kozak, amazing singer-songwriter, and then we first aired it through the Tallman Group that he was part of, and the last time they did an album, he had a follow-up to this song, and it was about going through difficulties with your father. And then he climbed Mount Kilimanjaro and went back down and went to a bar and realized, well, I'm done with that drama now. And so I want you to know there's a backup song to this, because it is about that growth and that change and learning your parents and learning from each other, and that change and that, what you talk about in your book. So, and you write about in your book. So I think this is the perfect song for it. But everyone, again, Chris Tebbetts, Me, Myself, and Him. And go to his website, christebbetts.com. I'm going to spell it again, Chris, ChrisTebbetts.com. Go there and go pre-order. You never know, you can get a T-shirt, and it is cool. You're going to want it. Yeah,
okay, cool.
You're going to want it. But here it is, Lessons from My Father, Jeff Kozak and the Tall Men Group, and you can keep up with them at tallmengroup.weebly.com, and they are some tall men, and we love our shows with them.
Out.
I know. Thanks so much, Chris, for joining us.
Oh, thank you. This was a blast.
Anytime, man. You keep us posted on the next one, okay?
Yeah.
I will.
Please. Cool.
I remember the lessons of my father. He used to tell me, son, there ain't no luck. You best find the tree and shake it, manufacture it or bake it, if you're ever gonna hope to make a buck. Failure was no option, and fear was just a word. Remembering the day I learned to swim, it was on the banks of Shaver Lake. He said it was for my own sake. Then he picked me up and he threw my ass right in. Lessons of my father. No fear. My mother was not a fearful woman. Still, she spent most her life living under this man's thumb. And my sister left home early. His demeanor was so surly, leaving me to face the ugliness to come. Like on my 16th birthday, he came a-looking for a fight. He said, I know you'd like to try and knock me down. I felt the wind sail by my fist, but I was slow, I knew I missed, and I woke up lying broken on the ground. Another lesson of my father. No fear. Play it. Of my father, I think about him every single day. He mostly was a bully, but at times his heart was full. And I love you were just words he could not option, and fear was just a word. 300 walk with me behind his hearse. But the biggest thing he taught me was the father I should not be, always leading by example, but in reverse. Lessons of my father, no fear. Lessons of my father, no fear. Lessons of my father, no fear. I remember the lessons of my father.